Rob Schneider was not buying anything that Jimmy Kimmel was selling after he returned to Jimmy Kimmel Live and Late Night on Tuesday night. Roll this up over at fandompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. So if you don't know what is going on with Jimmy Kimmel, he lied about Charlie Kirk's assassin last Monday, claiming that the assassin was a member of MAGA, despite all evidence pointing to the contrary. Kimmel said, "We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang, desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it." After Nexstar Media Group, which owns around 10% of all ABC affiliate stations, as well as Sinclair, announced they would be preempting Kimmel's show due to these comments, a Disney spokesman announced the show would be preempted indefinitely. However, the Walt Disney Company announced the show would return on Tuesday night, and in fact, it did. And Kimmel immediately attempted to spin a narrative that he was pulled off air due to government pressure, when all evidence points contrary to that. And he was pulled off air due to his comments and the pressure from Nexstar Media Group, as well as Sinclair. So after spinning that narrative, he then appeared to fake getting choked up and crying and said this: "But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human." That's a weird way to phrase things. And that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram of the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. He then added, "Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual." I think that is an outright bold lie, given the fact that that is exactly what he did. And I think that was his intention, because that is what he did. Because remember, he said, "We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang, desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them." So clearly trying to say that the assassin was a MAGA activist. So this is just an outright bold lie that he is giving here in his return. And he said, "That was really the opposite of the point I was trying to make." No, we got your point rather clear, and you're just lying now about it, and you're doubling down. But I understand that to some, that felt either ill-timed or unclear, or maybe both. And for those who think I did point a finger, I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way. Well, the situation was not reversed, because you did indeed point the finger. That is what you did. And you lying about it doesn't change the fact. Anyways, he then added, "I don't think the murderer who shot Charlie Kirk represents anyone. This was a sick person who believed violence was a solution, and it isn't ever." After this, he continued to spin his narrative about the government trying to take him off the air. Of note, he also never issued an apology or showed any real contrition or remorse for his actions. And in response to those comments, Rob Schneider wasn't buying any of it. He says, "In your semi-apology tonight, you lied again. You are not making light of Mr. Kirk's death. The suspension you justly received last week was for falsely accusing MAGA and Republicans, one of their own, you said, for the murder of our friend." He's absolutely right. Our friend Charlie Kirk, when it was in fact just another in the long line of murderous leftist lunatics who killed Charlie, who get their inspiration to kill from your dangerous leftist rhetoric. You and your other late night hosts and the other illiberal media's constant propagandizing and demonizing fellow Americans as fascists and Nazis have created the atmosphere where leftists feel that killing people who think differently is justified. Schneider then reiterated, saying, "And you were not even telling it in the form of a joke either, you liar." He's absolutely right. Jimmy Kimmel was not making a joke. He was just outright lying. He was trying to demonize people who believe in Make America Great Again. And then he said, "Even your own ABC affiliates are bored and sickened by your constant political indoctrination, by comedic imposition, and refuse to air your show." He then said, "Free speech is indeed all speech. We must even protect the speech that we loathe." So this is where I disagree with Rob Schneider. Free speech does not include all speech. I've talked about this in a number of videos in the past. Free speech indicates what has to have an end that is posited on the truth and goodness. So obviously you can say things that might not end up being true or good because you don't have all of the information at the time to determine whether what you are saying is indeed true or good. But in this case, Jimmy Kimmel was not doing that at all. He was lying, as Rob Schneider and as myself and many others have pointed out. And he lied again by saying that that's not what he was actually doing, when then that is what he was doing. And this is what we see with social justice warriors, right? What are the 3 laws of social justice warriors as posited by Vox Day? And SJWs always lie. Well, the first one is SJWs always lie. And the second one is they double down. And the third one is they project. And we see that here with Jimmy Kimmel lying and doubling down. So Rob Schneider is wrong. Free speech is not all speech. You do not have the right to lie. And in fact, we have laws against that with slander and libel and defamation. You do not have the right to lie. There is no such right to lie. And anyways, he goes on and says, we must even protect the speech that we loathe. No, we do not. We do not need to protect people that are lying. And we should not protect them because they have no right to lie. Anyways, he goes on and says, well, most Americans are decent, God-fearing people, and we loathe your speech, but we'll continue to support your right to speak it freely. No, we should not. We should actually be pressuring Sinclair, Nexstar Media, and other people, Disney with power, in order to get people like Jimmy Kimmel pulled off air who are indeed causing immense damage to this country, as Rob Schneider puts out when he says your dangerous leftist rhetoric is what is inspiring these lunatics to go out and do some of this stuff. And I think that is definitely what we are seeing. We are definitely seeing that happening. And it's coming from their rhetoric, which is rhetoric to kill people that have very different viewpoints than them, because those viewpoints are usually rooted in the truth and righteousness. And these people have been duped by people like Jimmy Kimmel, by the universities, by the high schools. They've been duped by other activists on Reddit and things like that, where they've bought into the lies of the world. They've bought into the twisting of what is true and right, thinking that that is somehow evil and wrong, when that is just the absolute opposite case. I mean, look at just transgender ideology. People think that a man can turn into a woman and think that is love and that is right and true, and that's just absolutely the opposite of what it is. Men cannot turn into women. Women cannot turn into men, and that is totally disordered from the way that we were created. So we should not be trying to support Jimmy Kimmel's right to lie and push this rhetoric whatsoever. We should be working to get him off of the air so he can no longer spew these lies and poison the minds of so many of our fellow Americans, because that is what is just and true. We should not be wanting our fellow Americans to be poisoned by his lies. Then he goes on and says, but we don't have to watch, and we won't. So that is true. I do think, obviously, a lot of people did watch this just to see what he was going to say. And I think we really saw who Jimmy Kimmel was, and that he is indeed a liar, and he's doubling down on his lies right here. So we see who Jimmy Kimmel is now. And now I don't think a lot of people are going to be watching what he has to say anymore. Obviously, there'll be some like media watchdogs to kind of keep an eye out on the kind of rhetoric that he is indeed using, but I don't think most Americans will be tuning in to watch him at all anymore, and they'll go back to his absolutely terrible ratings that he had before all of this happened. But anyways, in a subsequent post, Schneider added this: Kimmel has a tier delay system. He didn't cry last week when a young father was murdered in front of his children. No, he waits to dry cry only after his show was suspended. Thank you, Nexstar and Sinclair Media, for your sense of decency and American values. So I find this commentary really interesting here from Schneider. Obviously, he is a trained actor as well, and he obviously can spot when someone is faking it, and that is exactly what he's saying is what Kimmel is doing here. At least that's what I think he's saying. He's implying that he faked it, and that's exactly what it looked like just from me, who doesn't actually have any kind of training on any of that. It just completely felt totally disingenuous and fake. But let me know what you guys make of what Rob Schneider had to say here. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.
Why would you be afraid of the people? Why are you not afraid of God instead of man?